Wednesday, December 24th, 2025. Sounds nice and apocalyptic outside right now. And I can go beyond sounds. I was outside, and yes, it is apocalyptic right now. Following suit with the rest of the week, all but one, essentially one county that has people in it, and across the entire state of California has been under flood watch all week. Random fact for the outsiders: 20% of California is uninhabited. Yeah, you could probably hear that. It's government land, basically saved for mostly for nuclear testing, similar to Arizona and New Mexico. Those were about the only spots in the entire state that wasn't under a flood watch. And now we're also under a wind advisory, which I think the mic might be able to pick that up. It sounds like an airplane is just kind of circling around the house right now. That being said, I don't mind it, and it will make for an interesting day later on. I'm curious to see what kind of damage this does, because I imagine the answer will not be none, which will be something to look forward to during a time of year where the only thing I look forward to is it being over with. So that'll be nice. Which always seems to catch people off guard because they see me as this happy, smiley guy. And not necessarily wrong, but they just, for whatever reason, automatically assume that that means I like this time of year. And they are so wrong. Like Harvey Weinstein wrong. Okay, maybe not that wrong, but that wrong. I just can't stand it. I hate it so much. Pretty much hated it my entire adult life, too. And I feel like each year I get a different reason for why I hate it. But they keep stacking up, too. And it's one of those, like, it's just kind of hit the point of irreparable damage. That being said, the difference between myself and many people who don't like things is I totally get why people would. And I also understand why I wouldn't, just right off the bat. I know this because you can start right at the most primitive, rudimentary reasoning, that being I can't stand the color red. Never liked it, never will like it. It's the only color that will just shift my mood immediately when I see it. And it's not every shade of red. For instance, maroon is totally fine. Even a darker red, like a burnt red, totally fine. It's that blood red that... if we're referencing like sports teams colors, it's a Kansas City Chiefs red. It's that just like off-putting, straightforward red. I can even do red trim on things, but I can't stand the color red. So right there, I'm out. And like, how out am I? I've maybe thrown away 3 or 4 shirts in my entire adult life. I just don't outgrow them. I've always worn looser shirts, so whether I gain or lose weight, I kind of wear the same size no matter what. And because of that, like, a shirt's got to be just in the worst condition for me to be like, all right, I'm done with this. That being said, collection of roughly almost 2 decades now, I own 0 red shirts. I own black shirts, obviously, navy, orange, green, blue, a couple yellow even, a bunch of teal, but no red. None. And I don't plan on changing that anytime soon. Another part that just almost immediately counts me out is not a big religious person at all. So religious holidays kind of omit me from the party, which is fine, but I've just never been big on those. I always found this one kind of weird too because it's got like a different meaning to different subsects of religion, but it just, yeah, it's creme de la creme of religious holidays, which is why, yeah, I'm out. Another one I'm not a big fan of is the performative side of it. It gets old, gets exhausting for whatever reason. Some of it, if I liked the holiday, I'd get it. Some of it is just people deciding all of a sudden that they have to put on this act of this person they want the world to believe they are. Which it's like, why this specific week you're going with this act? Because either you look like a fraud the next time everybody sees you, or you have to now keep this act up forever. And it's just this permanent bit that you've worked yourself into. In wrestle speak, you worked yourself into a shoot, basically. So, not a big fan of that. And it manifests in different ways, but I will say, the people who like call you or text you when it's like you wouldn't bother to acknowledge I existed any other week of the year, but this week now I exist again. That's awesome. Then from there you can get into more obvious reasoning and more mainstream reasoning. One of them being the music. It's awful. The new stuff, the old stuff, it's terrible. And for so many reasons. Again, I've noticed there are like 8 Christmas songs that get beaten to death and covered and covered and recovered and redone and resampled and recovered and redone. And it just sounds slightly worse than the version you heard before it, the year before it. And it gets to a point where it's like, this is so bad. Yeah, even if I liked Christmas, this music is just, it's awful. It's objectively horrific. So the music doesn't help. The movies are bad. There might be a few decent ones. By and large, though, they're a train wreck. I'm usually not one to bash cinema. I can watch objectively terrible films and still find something redeeming about them usually, but it's bad. And if you don't think so, I challenge you to take a movie of your choice that is unabashedly and unapologetically revolves around Christmas and, celebrating it, outside of a handful. Watch said movie or movies in the middle of June. You'll cringe. It'll be an uncomfortable watch. And it won't take long to set in before you're like, oh no. And actually, I'll throw you a bone. If you enjoy this time of year, don't do that because you probably won't look at any of it ever again the same. I think it was about 15 when this became the reason I didn't like it that year. Was like, I watched different holiday themed movies way away. I'm talking like late April, early May. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like watching a puppet show from behind for the first time. That's what it felt like. Like, wow, I had the blinders on. It was like, well, at least the movies are decent. Nope. Watched those way away from it, and it was like, No, this is awful. the, the counterpoint is always, well, you could say that about any holiday. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like, you watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in July, the Thanksgiving film. It's still about the human experience more so than it is about Thanksgiving. And if you've ever had a travel day from hell, you can relate to that film. If you've ever been around someone who just doesn't know when to shut it, you can relate to that film. It doesn't, the calendar does not have to say November for you to enjoy that. There's an entire horror genre and a million subgenres of it that you could watch 12 months a year and enjoy thoroughly, and every bit as much in February as you would in October. So I don't buy that either. This one was a recurring theme. Not a big fan of the fights. And I get why they happen, because again, you get enough people trying to put on a front for a crowd, and you get even one person who's just not into just clapping their hands and going along with it, and you get some fights, and you get, pressure-packed situation, you get fights. You get people who feel like they've got something to prove in front of people who feel like that person owes something to the rest of the group to have proven. You get fights, and it's just like, this is horrible. And yeah, it just creates this pressure cooker environment where it's like, even when there isn't a fight, you're all just kind of sitting there wondering, okay, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? And then it ends, and it's like, well, the only relief we got from this is that it's over, which, imagine that. One that people seem to just go along with, and I don't know how you could defend even if you were a big fan of this time of the year, is the inflation. For whatever reason, now you get like to the latter half of December, and all of a sudden everything costs a little bit more. And supply and demand, I get it to an extent. I don't get the extent it's at and always is at this time of the year. So that part, again, indefensible. But it'll always be that way as long as people continue to oblige and just go with it, because it's another, well, we can get away with it and we're calling your bluff and you're not going to do anything about it. So that part, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Though I'd love to find someone defend that part or say, oh, I enjoy that part. So I feel like that one probably could go just clear across the board. Another one, this one gets overlooked. These next two get overlooked quite a bit and are given a free pass for whatever reason. And not that there's a ton you could do about it, but it does suck. I can't stand that everyone's sick. I wouldn't go as far as calling myself a germaphobe. I really don't like being around sick people, though, and a lot of people say they don't. The second I feel someone who's sick, like around me or hear that, I'm out. If I have to be around them too, it's not uncommon for me to hold them at least at arm's length away. Like the second, especially if they're in a bar, I will stiff arm somebody if they sound sick and they get too close. I just don't do that. Like I have no patience for it, especially when it's like, okay, you didn't risk your job status by being out, and you're out and you're sick. What are we doing here? So that one, you always see people online argue about what's better, summer, winter, or which season, which is funny because trick question is that. Real answer, fall. Because you get the happy medium between the two of them. But you always hear, how people just can't fathom why someone would enjoy summer more when winter exists. It's like, you really must enjoy walking into the supermarket, standing in line, and somebody behind you just letting this phlegmy hack rip all over you. Like, you must enjoy that, because I don't hear that very often. There's seasonal allergies in the spring, a little bit. You don't get that phlegmy hack like you get in the winter. That is just strictly for the winter. And it is disgusting. It's repulsing hearing that. And you hear it a lot. And the other one that's kind of hand in hand is, it just is miserable how everyone's tired. And you get it. It's dark, for all but like 5 hours a day. So of course everybody's tired, which again, hand in hand, leads to everybody being sick. But that part too is just like, really? This is the most wonderful time of year, huh? When the one guy next to you is in his pajamas and can barely keep his eyes open. The guy on the other side of him, I don't know if that's pneumonia or bronchitis or the worst head cold I've ever encountered in my whole life. I don't care what it is. I don't want it. I don't want to be around it. It's disgusting. They're disgusting for leaving the house that way. I want no part of it. So those two, I don't know why they get a free pass, because they don't happen the way they do in any other time of the year. The only other time that even gives it a respectable fight is the second week of school. If you live in an area with a lot of like school age kids, that second week, if they are under 20, try and stay at least 15 feet from them at all times, because about a 90% chance they're sick. That's the only other week of the year. And even then, it's the sniffles. It's not, I think that guy should be on oxygen right now if he sounds like that. So it's not quite the same beast, but it's disgusting in its own right. This next one wouldn't even be a thing, but there's a prerequisite to it that always happens. Almost always. It happens enough. That's the problem. It happens enough. I can't stand the hypocrisy, which we're all hypocrites to an extent. Some of us just do a better job at hiding it than others. But I can't stand the hypocrisy of 85% of the people who celebrate it despite not having stepped foot in a church in years. Which, again, I mentioned there was a prerequisite to it. The prerequisite being, you come out and just say, I'm really not a fan of this time of the year. And you tell someone that. If you don't have some war story at the ready for them, they lecture you and just dress you down. It's like, okay, I was at least honest by saying I'm not a fan of this time of year. You do nothing but basically stare down at me for not celebrating this time of the year or being a fan of it. Yet this is supposed to be a culmination of being all in on this section of religion, and yet you don't do any of that. So you're essentially like the marathon runner who hops in a cab a quarter of the way through the race and hops out a block from the finish line, waltzes across the finish line, then turns around and stares at everyone who hasn't finished. Like, that's how you appear to me when, what, do you not like this? How could you not like this? It's like, I could think of plenty of reasons. As we're going on 20 minutes of reasons, I just don't really feel like going one by one right now with you, but I can promise you the hatred is not blind. This one is more of a nuanced reason. I hate that people pretend the food is any better than any other time of the year. Food's not good. I've never seen someone's plate at Christmas and been like, wow, that just looks like the greatest homemade meal I've ever seen. Yet you do hear people, not often, but often enough, sit there and marvel at how great the food is around the holidays. It's like, based on what? The next picture of a plate where I'm like, wow, that looks unbelievable. That'll be the first. I think after 3 decades, probably got enough of a sample size to say, you know what, there's something here, or in this case, not here. This one, I've always found it funny because it would be, in an alternate universe, it would be hilarious to see some of the same people thrust into the situation that they put people around them in. That being, not a huge fan of everything being closed. Again, if you haven't stepped foot in a church in months upon years in many cases, does it really mean that much to you specifically, that, I need that day off? It's like, you get every Sunday off, but you would need a map to find the nearest church. So, yeah, I bet this day means a lot to you. So that part, I mention this too because, okay, fine, I'll concede that. Great, you need this day off. But imagine the general public if you just took a random holiday and decided to place meaning it didn't even know it had on it, from a religion that wasn't, America has no official religion, but it kind of centers around Christianity. Imagine if, say, Yom Kippur, everything's closed. Everything. If it's open till 3 p.m. Somehow you just get this weird feeling that the same people who are excited to shout out, as it should be, everything should be closed, everyone should be home, would be the ones complaining the loudest if, Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, everything shut down. No exceptions. Oh, you need gas? Well, that's a bummer. Grocery store's not open. Are you kidding me? Like, imagine that. For 1 year, it would be pretty funny. If you enjoy chaos, there's no way you wouldn't enjoy that. That would be pretty funny to see. And just to record the reactions from the same people, again, who lecture you about, oh, you don't like this time of year? Have to sit there and act like, well, okay, I guess it's someone else's turn. That's fine. I'll weather the storm on this one. Another one that flies under the radar, but it is worth saying, pun intended, I can't stand the sayings. Some of the dumbest sayings you'll hear in the entire English language come right out of this time of the year. I'm not even going to go into them because I think I'm tuned up enough as it is. And if the shoe fits, if you're, I wonder which sayings. That saying that just popped into your head right now, that's the one I'm talking about. Can't stand them. Oh, all of a sudden, again, a holiday that comes around once a year, all of a sudden now we all have to talk like we've got a mid-Atlantic accent and, like we're in a 1950s black and white film. Unironically, too, no less. Like, that's how we're all going to address each other for the next 3 weeks. Like, it looks and sounds foolish at best. Idiotic, I think, is even a fair descriptive term for it. I can't stand it. Drives me nuts. Every single one of them. The next one, that one right there that just popped into your head, can't stand that one either. And yet somehow that kind of goes under the radar. And this one, this last reason I'll give, is more so guilty by association than anything. It's not necessarily this holiday's fault that it falls at this portion of the calendar. But I hate how it is the opening day of just a slew of awful holidays. This one, which is like 2 in 1 if you include Eve in the actual day. So it's a double whammy right there. You follow it up with another double whammy a week later. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Insufferable. Let's all dress up and let's all pretend like our lives are going to change overnight because one extra number changes on the calendar tonight. The concept and it bleeding into the mainstream, unbelievable. I kind of thought, looking at it through a broader scope, that this would be something that would have gone away with like the Mayans maybe. But nope. Let's all pretend like new year, new me, as if, like people who say this, talking about like noon on New Year's Day, you're still only 12 hours removed from the year before. Now all of a sudden you're a different person. And again, if you feel that strongly, if you need an entire rewiring of your identity, why would you wait? I feel like if I was in that position where it was just time to just scrub everything, start over from the ground level up, if that's really what I feel to be the worthwhile and best course of action, that's starting that day. I don't care what the calendar says. If I really felt that strongly, no, that's it. I'm gonna quit smoking, or I'm gonna quit drinking. I'm gonna quit this. I'm gonna quit that. Why wait? I don't get it. So you got 2 double whammies in the course of a week, essentially. And then Valentine's Day, I don't get that one either. And again, the just overwhelming amount of red involved in that. I was never meant to like that one. I don't get that one. I'm not sure if I want to get that one. It's fun in elementary school because no way, candy. I don't know, over the age of 10, it's just like, what are we doing? So that one I won't even put on Christmas, but it does. Unfortunately, it's guilty by association. You pile those 5 days together in a stretch of, let's see, 52 days. That's an awful holiday at a clip of about every 10th day. That is not a good pace to keep. That being said, it is the pace it keeps and will. I mean, there's no other way around it. That being said, rant over. Californiapocalypsemas. Here we go. Everyone have an eyes wide shut Christmas, and I can't wait to hear your plans for it.